rejected, too small, too frail. Imagine hearing those words as a kid, repeatedly, while chasing the one thing you've dreamed of your entire life. For most people, that kind of constant rejection would break them. But for one boy from Porto Alegre in Brazil, it did something different. It lit a fire inside him. This is the story of Raphinha, a kid who grew up in the vibrant, chaotic streets of a Várzea community, where football wasn't just a game, it was life. The dream was simple: play professionally, make his family proud, and escape the cycle of struggle. But the road was anything but easy. By the time he was 18, Raphinha had already been to more trials than he could count. International, Grêmio, you name it. Every time the result was the same. Sorry kid, you're just not what we're looking for. They said he was too small, too fragile, too weak to compete with the big boys. And you know what's worse? He started to believe it. But if you think this is where the story ends, you're wrong. Because sometimes, when the world tells you no, all you need is one reason to say yes. Raphinha's journey wasn't just about proving others wrong. It was about proving something to himself. That no matter how many doors slam shut, all it takes is one to crack open. And when it does, you better be ready to kick it down. You know how people always say, if you work hard enough, your dreams will come true? Well, try telling that to 18-year-old Raphinha, because no matter how hard he worked, every door he knocked on seemed to slam in his face. International? No. Grêmio? Nah. Every time the answer was the same: sorry kid, you're just not cut out for this. They said he was too small, too frail, no power. Like, how many ways can someone tell you you're not good enough? At that point, it wasn't just rejection. It was a punch to the gut, over and over again. And the worst part, he started to believe them. Can you imagine that? Having this dream you've had since you were 7 years old and suddenly thinking, maybe I'm not meant for this. Maybe I'm just not enough. By the time he got to Avaí, it felt like his last chance. He was playing with their under-20 team, 6 hours away from home, completely out of his comfort zone. And just when things started to look up, bam, he got injured. When he finally got back on his feet, the coach didn't even bother putting him in the squad. They told him to train on his own. Like, come on, how much can one guy take? At that point, he was done. He picked up the phone, called his parents, and said, "That's it, I'm coming home, I can't do this anymore." Now, here's where it gets interesting. Instead of the typical, "No, don't give up" pep talk, his mum hit him with some real talk. She said, "All right, come home. But if you're giving up on football, you're getting a normal job." Raphinha knew exactly what that meant. Working long hours for minimum pay, probably in a supermarket or cutting hair or something. Not that there's anything wrong with those jobs, but it wasn't his dream. And his mum, she'd done all of that. She'd worked every job under the sun to make ends meet before finally getting her degree and doing what she loved. And that's when it hit him. If she never gave up on her dream, what excuse do I have? By the end of that phone call, something clicked. He wasn't ready to quit just yet. He remembered why he started playing football in the first place. Not for the money, not for the fame, but because it was his passion. It's crazy, right? That one conversation changed everything. And let me tell you, this is where Raphinha's story goes from just another kid who almost made it to wait till you hear what happens next. So after that life-changing phone call with his mum, Raphinha didn't just decide to stay at Avaí. He doubled down. And you know what? That decision might have been the turning point of his entire life. At Avaí, things didn't magically get easier. It was still a grind. He started with the under-20 team in the Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A. But remember, this was 2014. He was 18, injured and struggling to even get into the squad. Most players in his position would have packed it up. But Raphinha, he kept training on his own, day after day, pushing himself because he knew he had something to prove. And here's the crazy part. Even though he wasn't playing regularly, scouts were starting to take notice. Word was spreading. This kid has something special. But Avaí wasn't about to let him go just yet. They saw his potential. And when the Copa São Paulo de Futebol Junior came around in 2016, Raphinha got his shot to shine. And boy did he take it. He wasn't just good, he was electric. The kind of player who makes you sit up and go, who is that kid? And one person who noticed? Deco. Yes, that's Deco, the Barcelona and Chelsea legend. He had his eye on Raphinha and knew he had to act fast. So here's what Deco did. He signed Raphinha to his agency, D20 Sports, and made a bold move. He arranged for him to join Portuguese side Vitória de Guimarães. I mean, one day you're grinding it out in Brazil and the next you're heading to Europe. Talk about a glow-up. Raphinha landed in Portugal in February 2016, and it didn't take long for him to make his mark. A month later, he made his debut for Vitória, and by August, he scored his first goal. But 2017? That's when things started clicking. He wasn't just a promising player anymore. He was the breakout star. He scored 18 goals in 43 games during the 2017-18 season, and even won Vitória's Breakthrough Player of the Year. And get this, he was playing in the Europa League, going from training alone at a V to facing off against teams like Red Bull Salzburg. That's wild, right? Here's the best part though. This was just the beginning. While most players would have been content to stop here, Raphinha wasn't done dreaming. He knew he was destined for bigger things. And as we'll see, Europe was only the first step on his journey to becoming a star. It's like his story is building momentum, and you can't help but wonder, what's next? Well, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. But before I talk more on that, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Just like Raphinha, we're grinding to make a name for ourselves. Thank you in advance, and now back to the video. Okay, so Raphinha's journey just keeps getting better. After tearing it up at Vitória de Guimarães, he earned a move to Sporting CP in 2018. Joining a club like Sporting is a big deal. This is a team known for producing legends like Cristiano Ronaldo and Luis Figo, so you know the expectations were sky high. Raphinha made his debut against Moreirense, and a month later, he was on the score sheet in the Europa League against Karabag. Scoring in European competitions? That's when you know you're leveling up. But here's the thing, his time at Sporting wasn't all smooth sailing. Injuries started creeping in. A muscle injury slowed him down, and while he showed flashes of brilliance, his numbers, just 4 goals and 4 assists, weren't exactly headline-grabbing. But Raphinha isn't someone who gives up when things get tough, remember? Instead, he made himself indispensable in other ways. Take the 2018-19 Taça da Liga final, for example. It was Sporting versus Porto, and the game went to penalties. Now, can you imagine the pressure of stepping up in a shootout? Raphinha didn't just handle it, he nailed it. Call as you like, Sporting won the trophy, and later, they added the Taça de Portugal to their collection. Raphinha was part of a double-winning side. Not bad for someone who's been told he was too frail, huh? But the real turning point came in 2019. French club Rennes came knocking, and they weren't messing around. They made him their record signing for 21 million euros. That's a serious statement, and Raphinha, he didn't just justify the price tag, he thrived. In his first season, Rennes finished 3rd in Liga, securing a spot in the Champions League for the first time in their history. Think about that for a second. A club like Rennes, not exactly a European powerhouse, was heading to the biggest stage in club football, and Raphinha was a huge part of that. And his final game for Rennes? It's like a scene out of a movie. Against Ram, he scored and assisted, helping his team fight to a 2-2 draw. It was the perfect goodbye. 8 goals, 7 assists, and countless moments of magic later, Raphinha had made his mark in France. But let's not forget, this is Raphinha we're talking about. He was always aiming higher, so when the Premier League came calling, he didn't hesitate. Leeds United was the next stop on his incredible journey, and trust me, this is when things started to get wild.
Raphinha, first of all, how are you feeling now you're a Leeds United player?
Cara, eu me sinto muito...
How I feel to be a Leeds United player, I feel really satisfied, really happy with the opportunity, the trust the club has shown in me. I believe I can show my game, I can show the club my work and why they believed in me. And yeah, I'm really happy to be here, I'm really satisfied, and I hope to, even in a small part, write my name in the club's history.
October 2020, Leeds United, back in the Premier League after 16 years in the wilderness, snags Raphinha for £17 million. At the time, it felt like a solid deal, but little did anyone know he'd become the guy Leeds fans would sing about in the stands. He didn't waste any time making an impact. His first goal, a beauty against Everton at Goodison Park, a slick strike that not only secured Leeds their first win in 30 years, but also screamed, "Hey, I'm here to make history." And he did, finishing his debut season with 6 crucial goals. The man had flair, skill, and that Samba style that made Leeds games an absolute joy. By his second season, Raphinha was the guy. 11 goals, countless dazzling runs, and some absolute screamers. Remember his equaliser against Everton? A low rocket that got nominated for Goal of the Month. And how can we forget the ice-cold penalty on the final day of the season against Brentford? Leeds needed a win to survive, and Raphinha stepped up like a boss. Leeds stayed up, and Raphinha's name was etched in Premier League folklore. Then came the summer of 2022, a transfer window that could have been its own Netflix special. Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, everybody wanted Raphinha. But guess what? He only had eyes for Barcelona. Even with Barca's financial drama, he was like, no, that's my dream and I'm sticking to it. And it happened. £50 million later, Raphinha was rocking the iconic Blaugrana jersey. His start at Barcelona wasn't smooth sailing though. Registration issues meant he debuted without a proper shirt number. Imagine that. But soon enough he found his rhythm, scoring a crucial goal against Sevilla and even grabbing an assist against Man United in the Europa League. And when Dembele got injured, Raphinha had a chance to shine. Sure, he had his ups and downs, but he ended the season as a La Liga champion. That's a big flex. Fast forward to 2024 and things were shaky. Fans weren't convinced, and the club's management even considered selling him. But just when it seemed like the story might end, new manager Hansi Flick came in and flipped the script. Flick saw Raphinha's potential, moved into a central role, and suddenly the magic was back. A hat-trick against Real Valladolid, another hat-trick in the Champions League against Bayern Munich. Talk about sweet revenge. And then an El Clásico masterclass. A goal, an assist, and a 4-0 win over Real Madrid. Raphinha was back in his element, silencing doubters and making headlines for all the right reasons. But the big question is, can he win the Ballon d'Or? Well, yes. I mean, Raphinha is having one heck of a season. 19 goals, 11 assists. Talk about numbers that could make you think Ballon d'Or. That's right, this guy is not just a winger anymore. He's a full-blown game changer for Barcelona. He's top in the charts, and if you didn't know who Raphinha was before, you're seeing him take over the pitch like it's his personal playground. This season, Raphinha has turned it up a notch, scoring in the biggest games. Because that's what the top players do, right? And when we're talking about big games, I mean goals against Real Madrid? Not once, but twice, and Bayern Munich. That's the kind of performance that Ballon d'Or voters love to see. When you're scoring against giants and doing it in crunch time moments, you're making a serious case for the award. Now here's where it gets spicy. If Barcelona go on to win both La Liga and the Champions League this season, Raphinha could very well be in the mix for the Ballon d'Or. Let that sink in for a second. A player who is leading his team in goals, creating assists, and pulling off match-winning performances on the biggest stages. If Barca get those trophies, Raphinha's name will be at the top of that Ballon d'Or conversation. This story could be iconic. This is the same Raphinha who, just a few years ago, was labelled too frail, too weak, and not good enough by multiple academies. Clubs said no, but he kept pushing, and now look where he is, scoring in El Clásicos, Champions League knockout games, and competing for the biggest individual award in football. From being overlooked to possibly lifting the Ballon d'Or, that's a story for the ages.
Siento que aún puedo mejorar mucho más y bueno, creo que puedo ayudar muchísimo más con muchas mejorías que puedo tener.
It's a testament to his resilience, his growth, and his ability to prove people wrong. Raphinha is rewriting his story this season, and if Barcelona keeps this momentum, we could be witnessing something truly historic. Ballon d'Or or not, this is a season Raphinha and football fans will remember forever.